You're listening to Kennesaw State University's Atlanta Student Movement podcast, where we share untold stories of Atlanta's role in the struggle for civil rights. These stories give voice to unsung heroes who stood up against segregation in a city at war with itself, in a city that started a movement.
Welcome to episode 1 of the Atlanta Student Movement podcast. Episode 1 is called Arlington to Atlanta. Here with me are James Lee.
Hello.
And Eric Merriweather.
Howdy.
And I am Lucas Rice. Let's get this party started.
So, many people are unaware of the Atlanta Student Movement of 1960, the very movement this project was built upon, let alone who helped start it.
The man who helped start the Atlanta Student Movement is named Dr. Lonnie King.
That's right. Dr. Lonnie King was the co-chair for the Atlanta Student Movement in 1960, but his advocacy didn't start in 1960.
Dr. Lonnie King had a lot of important experiences starting at a young age. His grandfather raised him from the age of 2.5 until his passing. Dr. Lonnie King was 8 years old when that happened. He was born in Arlington, Georgia on August 30th, 1936.
Dr. Lonnie King's grandfather was one of the most influential people in his life. He was a Baptist preacher and carried Lonnie around with him everywhere he went.
Yep, and according to Lonnie, he was like a little mascot.
And his grandfather doing that proved to be the best decision he made, because Lonnie King recalls his grandfather preaching about freedom, liberty, justice, and equality, and he remembers hearing these sermons being preached specifically within a segregated society, even at a young age. This exposure at such a young age is what helped shape him into the leader we all know him as.
So after his grandfather passed, Dr. King moved back to Atlanta to be with his mother, who was a member of Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. happened to be senior pastor. This, of course, is how Lonnie was introduced to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
And at this church between 1945 and 1954, Dr. Lonnie King was put in charge of every youth program. This led to him being appointed the head of the Ebenezer Youth Organization, where he further developed his leadership skills.
And this is also where the tide turns, because Dr. Lonnie King went to the Navy in 1954. He found there to be a lot of discrimination in the Navy, but he also found a way to battle through the system. The discrimination he faced and fought in the Navy was part of the preparation for what they did in the movement in 1960.
More importantly, though, Dr. Lonnie King grew up in an environment where he was surrounded by people who were preaching liberation theology. This environment influenced his advocacy in the Atlanta Student Movement. This is a quote from Dr. Lonnie King from an interview just a few years ago. "I had a spiritual grounding coming from my granddaddy, through my mother, through the Kings, and I also had the practical experience of battling segregation type things in the U.S. Navy. So I guess when the young boy sat down in Greensboro on the 1st of February in 1960, I was ready, simple as that." So it's really interesting to hear about and learn about Dr. Lonnie King's life. So what do y'all think about the experiences that he had, and how it, especially at such a young age, and how did it affect him the rest of his life?
Well, I think it was great that he was doing all these things when he was such a young age. I mean, it shaped him, molded him into the man that he needed to become. He became, because I mean, if he wasn't being a leader at church, stuff like that, and advocating for himself, well, I don't know if he would have been able to advocate for African Americans.
Yeah, that's a good point. He also said in one of his interviews that he learned from Daddy King, as he put it, the importance of advocacy. He demonstrated in his youth, which was important, the very things his adult contemporaries were trying to embody themselves. Remember, the adults at the time who were in the movement wanted him to wait until he finished school before they joined the fight. But as a direct result, he said, of the influence of the Kings at Ebenezer, he decided that later was too late to fight.
for now, that's all we have for today. Come and check out our second episode of the Atlanta Student Movement Podcast. We will be talking about the October 19th richest sit-in. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Kennesaw State University's Atlanta Student Movement Podcast. For more information, check out our podcast homepage for details on the project and how you can contact us. Thanks for listening.